Hello and welcome to the morning Rabble. As you can see, I'm joined by Mark and Kerr. How you guys doing?
All good, mate.
All good, Wally. Fine here.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Martin chose to go with Yanis Hagi's wanted the Galatasaray, so we'll touch a wee bit on Yanis. He's obviously, it looks like he's very close to returning to first team football for us. There's even talk that he can maybe be on the bench this weekend potentially, which would be great for Yanis, obviously, after missing basically a year and a bit of football, which is unbelievable, really. I'll just touch on a little bit about Yanis and then pass it over to yourselves. Still only 24 years old, which, as I said to Mark kind of previously, that surprised me. I thought he was maybe a wee bit older. Obviously, he's an Romanian international. Some websites now have him under contract to 2026. I think his previous deal ran out in 2024, and Rangers never announced the length of the extension to his contract. So that's maybe a little bit of guesswork, but that would suggest that he signed a 2-year extension. Looking at his games, like, I know a lot of people are into their stats, not as much me, but I'll put it out there because I know people love that stuff. The goals and assist ratio, he's basically a goal or an assist every 2 to 2.5 games, which is great going, really. And that's, that's basically what we're looking for right now. We're looking for guys that can create and score goals. So having Yanis back obviously adds that to the team. And we'll touch a little bit on what would Yanis's value be right now, given that he's missed a year of football, but he's still young, he's still a full international. Obviously, we know what his technical base is, so we'll kind of go through a wee bit of that. Mark, I'll come to you on Yanis first. Having him back in the team, what does that add, like, straight away in terms of his qualities, obviously, to the starting 11?
Obviously, it improves our starting 11. I think he's a fantastic player, technically gifted. Can see a pass, eye for a pass. Obviously, extra bodies in there, more competition. I think we need to be a wee bit kind of. We need to go easy on him. We can't expect too much from him. I think, as I said, this boy's not kicked a ball in over a year, so we can't expect too much from him, and that's saying something. That's kind of telling a Rangers fan not to expect too much is like it's something that you can't do. So the expectation at Rangers is massive, but as I said, we need to just take our time with this boy. I don't think you'll see really much of him for the rest of the season. A couple of wee cameos here and there, but as I said, it's a good boost for him. And a good boost for our team, as I said, an extra body in, and I think something different, something that I don't think we've really got. He's slightly different from anything else that we've got there. So yeah, definitely a boost.
I'll just touch on one of the comments for William, my namesake. Good morning, guys. I'll be keeping a close eye on Forest Green this season to see how Charlie McCann and the latest loan signing, Charlie Savage, get on there. We're going to touch on Charlie McCann, and that was something I spoke to Kerr about yesterday. So we'll kind of touch on that just after we speak about Yanis Hagi. So stay tuned to hear what Kerr's got to say on Forest Green Rovers and that particular move for Charlie McCann. Right, Kerr, Yanis Hagi, obviously the season we won the league, he was very influential in that team. He scored some hugely important goals for us. Several 1-0 victories that he got the goal. Other games, he was just the creative spark that that got us the 3 points. What does Yanis bring to the pitch, and where do you think his best position is?
He brings something, like Mark said, a wee bit different. He can create, he can score, but he's inventive. Sometimes too inventive, and his teammates don't know what he's doing. But Yanis he's an enigma with Rangers fans. A lot of Rangers fans, he's always the first one that jumps on everybody's lips to say, I would sell him. Do you know that way? But he offers us so much. I like him as a footballer, I have to say I do, and I think he's the type of player that gets fans excited. Yeah, he's got his faults like everybody else, but he just offers something else. Like I said earlier, he can create, he can score, and he just does a pass that some people don't expect, especially defenders, like between the lines. He's reading the games really good, especially going forward. And as you see, the goals he's been involved in are created, and he's a joy to watch for me. But he's one that everybody always says, if you get a good offer, Yanis would go. And it's probably one of the reasons is he does keep his value. But unless it's a really good offer, I wouldn't like to sell him, but I can see why people are saying it, just because obviously we're linked with Malik Tillman, and if Tillman comes through the door, he's very similar to Giannis, slightly different physique-wise. Malik's a bigger boy, more physical probably than Giannis, probably a bit quicker as well. But they're both very similar player-wise. So if you could get money back for Giannis, it pays for Tolman, then you're kind of not spending any money, are we?
No. Well, we'll touch on one of those points. Obviously, one of the guys in the comments is saying, I would sell Hagi if they had a buyer. It's not even a certain starter before his injury. No way he has improved after a year out. Sell him and move on. Yeah, look, I understand both sides of that, and I'll come to you on that, Mark. Obviously, when you look at a player returning who's had such a serious injury, he's missed a full year of football, so that's, in itself a big thing for a player. He's trying to get his self back in the starting 11. He's trying to show the manager that he should have a future here, even though we've given him a new contract, which obviously sort of protects the club as much as it protects Giannis. Is that a fair comment to say that if somebody was to come in for Giannis and offer a certain amount of money that, Rangers should be looking at that?
I'm the same as you. I can see both sides of that coin. To play devil's advocate a wee bit, how many players have you know off the top of your head that have come back from being a year out and progressed at the club that they were in? Doesn't happen an awful lot. Usually they move to get to progress. I think that what happens is when a player gets injured or a serious injury, they almost like move on from that player. So they obviously bring somebody in to replace that player because they know he's going to be out for a year. So generally they find it hard to find form and fitness when they come back. So as I said, to play devil's advocate, I can see the point. If Galatasaray are offering decent money, then it might be worth a shout. As I said, as it stands, we don't know what type of player, what type of Giannis Hagi we're going to get back. So, as I said, I can see the point where people are saying, well, if there's money on the table, we maybe take it just now rather than spend another year down the line and maybe not get anything back on him. So, the risk is, how's he going to come back? Is he going to come back the same?
Yeah, of
Or
course.
is it going to? So that this is it's $1 million question. As I said, I can see both sides of that coin, but I think it's whether Beale wants him in that squad, and I think Beale obviously remembers what kind of player he was prior to his injury. So if he comes back the same, Hagi, then 100% keep him. But as I said, it's $1 million question. It's a hard one to make that decision.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that not many clubs are probably going to bid for a guy that's just missed a year of football. But just because that was in this morning's paper, Martin's went with that as a headline. So we just obviously feel that we need to touch on that this morning. I think realistically, if Giannis can get himself back to any type of level between now and the summer, then there's potential for that type of thing to happen in the summer. But it does feel like at the moment that would be hard to see a club paying a huge amount for Giannis, given that he has just missed a full year of football. Kerr, I'll come to you on it. Obviously, this link with Galatasaray has been there forever, basically, because his dad played there. I think Giannis was pretty much born in Istanbul as well. So I think it's one of those links that's never going to disappear as long as he's at Rangers or at, obviously, any other club other than Galatasaray. I take it when you look at Giannis that you're not expecting anything to happen this month. It will be that he'll need to prove his fitness again and prove that he can, sort of play through until the summer at least before anything would happen.
You would think so, but you just never know in football. I mean, they can set up deals different ways, can't they? And they get so much money after they play a amount of games, or send them in loan with an option to buy, all different things. Or maybe Giannis just refuses to go because he wants to stay at Rangers to prove he wants to play in the first team. So you just don't know. Sometimes the paper talk's just paper talk, and other times there's something in it. Sometimes there's no smoke without fire. But it will be interesting because we all know we have to release some players, like trying to order some players, because in certain areas of the team we're short, but other areas of the team are quite strong. So it's a balancing act that Rangers are going to have to do between now and the summer.
Yeah. Fog Dog's obviously asking about Skolden and John Park. I think Skolden's already left, to be honest. I don't think he is at the club anymore. I saw the link with John Park moving to Hibs yesterday, I think it was. But yeah, again, I think there's always people coming and going in the scouting department. I don't think that's unheard of in football circles. I think there is constant movement in that front. So a lot of the time, I couldn't tell you who the scouts were at the training ground, if I'm totally honest with you. because there's that many people up there now that walk by you that you never know who they are. So, but in terms of John Park, I know he obviously came into the club recently and has been doing a bit of work. Whether we'll bring in more people or we have brought in more people since then, I couldn't tell you 100%, but I do believe that Scalding has left the football club, and I think he went to a club in England as well. But in terms of John Park, I don't know if that story yesterday was true or not. It was just linked in one of the national newspapers. All right, we'll touch on Charlie McCann quickly, because that was also one of the comments before. I'll come to you, Kerr, because I kind of spoke to you about this yesterday, kind of off camera kind of thing. Obviously, the deal's confirmed yesterday. They say that the fee could be upwards of £350,000. There's a potential sell on. Rangers have the option of a buyback at some point in the future as well. Is that the kind of thing that the club need to do? If we were to lose a Leon King, an Adam Devine, and an Alex Lowry, that should be standard in any deal where a player moves on for Rangers, especially those under the age of maybe 22 or 23.
I think they'll do that with players they think have got maybe the potential to kick on, but maybe they don't get a chance at Rangers.
Yeah.
I think some players I might not think it's worth putting in. But obviously they bought Charlie for Man United because they thought they highly rated him at the time, and Charlie knocked back a deal at Man United to come to Rangers, and he's knocked back a deal at Rangers to go to Forest Green. So obviously Charlie wants to prove to people he's a first team player, no matter where it is. And I say to you, I've got nothing but admiration for Charlie going to do that, because he could easily take his money at Rangers and be in the squad 1 week or just not do nothing at the weekend, because the B team games are probably they're too easy for him, because he's in between that level of the first team and the academy team, plus he is getting older. So good on Charlie going there, but the only thing is the Forest Green Rovers are sitting bottom of the league at the moment. So him and Charlie Savage, it's been brought in as well, they're going to have to start like a house on fire, or they could end up playing in League 2, Charlie McCann. So I'm not sure how we'll get on the rest of the season, but good luck to him. Good luck to Forest Green, and like one of the boys in the chat said, we'll keep an eye on him. I will as well, because I like to see somebody leaving us going to doing really well. And if we do really well, we've got an option to get him back. It'll benefit us. If not, and they sell him for a bit of money, then we've got an option at that as well. So either way, it's a win-win for me.
I think it's just interesting, somebody like Charlie, he isn't like every young player. Clearly he wants to go and play. He's still only 20 years old, but at his stage of his career, he wants to be playing in a league that he knows is going to help him get better, help him develop. And that kind of moves an interesting one. Actually, after yesterday's pod, I went and looked, and I think there's something like 5 guys who are either Scottish or have played in the Scottish League that's at Forest Green. And obviously yesterday they tapped into the loan market by picking up Charlie Savage, who's obviously quite well thought of at Man United. So it's interesting, like the way they seem to be going is maybe that they're bringing in a lot more younger players, and they're looking to maybe kind of source like the best young loan players as well. And then that squad, if you can have 1 or 2 of those guys who become outstanding talents, then you've got a really big, potential sale on your hands as well. Or if you start getting links to an Arsenal or a Man United, if you're, constantly getting a player on loan every year, it certainly makes a lot of sense, especially at that level of English football. But we'll move on to Lewis Mayo. I'll come to you, Mark. Obviously, Lewis has been at Rangers for a long time now. He's been out on loan several times, as most people will be aware. Currently out on loan at Kilmarnock. He's under contract for another year and a half until the summer of 2024. Scotland under 21 international, been linked with a permanent move to Killie where he's on loan, Ross County, St Johnstone, and I think there was a few English clubs in there as well. I guess at 22 years old, Mark, you're starting to think about the next step in your career. And did you get that okay, mate?
I've kind of got something. You kind of broke up a wee bit. I don't know whether it was me or you.
What about like sort of Lewis Mayo? Do you think at this stage of his career, being 22, that he basically needs to go on a permanent deal to somewhere where he's going to obviously develop further as a player?
Yeah, I think at that age, you need to be playing football. I mean, you really, really need to be playing football week in, week out. Obviously for personal development as well. it doesn't look as if he's going to come back to Rangers and get any sort of a sniff. So I think that he needs to think about his future and where he's going to move on. So I think that I don't really know too much about the boy. I said I know that he's been there. He's been at Rangers for God knows how long, but he's had a few loans and he's always done well. In
Yeah.
loans, he's always been well thought of and stuff like that. So I think for the young lad, he needs to think about his own career rather than thinking about playing for Rangers, because as it stands at the minute, it doesn't look as if it's ever going to happen for him. So as I said, there's always something to aspire to. Maybe in his career later in life, maybe come back if he does well elsewhere. But I think it needs to for his own sake move permanently and play football, especially at that age.
I think the good thing for Lewis, like sort of just looking at where he is at the moment, he's playing in the Premier League and he seems to be doing quite well, which I think is obviously good for him because it means that other clubs will take kind of more notice of him as well. So it would be interesting. I don't know what kind of like sort of fee Rangers would be looking at for somebody like Lewis. It would maybe be a 5-figure fee for Lewis, but I would imagine they'll want a sell-on clause as well, and then potentially a buyback clause. You know, depending on how he does at his next club, whether that's in Scotland or it's at England. I think the one thing that stands out about Lewis is he's a very smart kid. You know, very intellectual, speaks very well. He's been out on loan several times where he seems to have done quite well at every club he's been at, and he's gradually kind of moved up to now playing in the Premier League. And I've, you know, just like most other guys, you keep a, you know, you sort of keep a close eye on how players are doing out on loan. So, and Lewis has quite a few Man of the Match awards this year in the Premier League. So to be, you know, the best player on the pitch in any given game in the Premier League shows that he's good enough to be playing at this level. So it'll be interesting to see where he does end up, whether that move happens now or in the summer. But clearly, I think at Lewis's age, it means that he does need to move on. He does need to play. And obviously, with somebody that's turning 23 this summer and he's not already in the Rangers squad, it would probably suggest that a move somewhere else would be best for him. Right, I'll come to you, Kerr, on a couple of other players that have been linked with moves away for the football club. Josh McPake and Kai Kennedy. Obviously, both guys at one point or another have been linked with being good enough at Rangers. You know, sort of being part of the first team. You know, all of the stuff that kind of happens at Rangers when you're a young player and things are going well. It kind of feels like with both of these lads, they've kind of drifted a little bit to a point. You know, they've had several loans now. Some of them have worked out, some of them haven't. I think Josh is under contract to 2024, and I think Kai is out of contract this summer. Just looking at both their lads, I know they're both out on loan, but do you feel a permanent move somewhere else where it's just a clean break from Rangers is best for both?
Probably is. Both of them have kind of stagnated with their development, especially Josh, because I think he was really high rated. I know you rated Josh really well. I don't know what the issue's been. I don't know if they've just hit a peak with their development and it's kind of levelled off, or there's been something else going on. But Kai is one that always looked a decent player, so he'll probably find the club quite easy. I don't know if it's the lower leagues of Scotland or England. Josh is, I've seen Josh a few times and he's technically a really gifted footballer. So I don't know why he's not took that extra step. It's strange because when you watch him play, you think this boy's a really good football player. And when he's on the, I've seen him play with Queen's Park, and even the Queen's Park, they spent a bit of money and they've got a few good players. Josh can stand out at times, and there's a chance that Queen's Park will play in the SPL next season. So I don't know if he'll make an offer for him, it'll go there, or if he'll go back down to England. I know he kind of struggled down when he was down there before, so I don't know where the two of them will go. I don't see them being at Rangers, but I think the both of them will still demand a good amount of money. One of the clubs, and they're probably not on a big wage either, so it'll be easy to deal with Rangers for where they go. It's just up to the boys who want to take their next step to, whether it's up in Scotland or down south or maybe abroad.
Yeah. We'll touch on something CGM says, and it's a fair point. Obviously, in the last 24 hours, we've seen news that I think it was Millwall were linked with a bid for Kevin Nisbet, reported to be over £1 million. CGM saying, why are we not going to Hibs and offering them somebody like Lewis Mayo as part of the deal for Nisbet? Hibs will be looking for a replacement for Porteous, and Mayo could do that. I'll come to you on that, Mark. Is that something that maybe Rangers could do more of, that they could maybe utilise some of the younger players that are out on loan to use him as part of a deal. So maybe you save a couple of £100,000 instead of having to pay that, but you use that kind of that bait per se of like using a young player to try and get somebody else.
Yeah, I mean that's in an ideal world, but let's face it, they're only going to take this player or these players if they want them.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's no any good us saying right, we'll give you X, Y, and Z if they actually physically don't want these players. So I understand that the theory of it sounds really good, but as I said, it's no. It needs to be. They need to be interested in that player for them to make a make way. Very, very rarely does that happen these days. But just on the Nisbet thing as well, I can offer 50 grand for Kevin Nisbet, but the doesn't say they're going to accept it. So
No.
do you know what I mean? That's the premise. I think that Millwall are just testing the water. You see how much they're going to come back to. I mean, that's their opening bid. So their opening bid's a lot less than what they're actually willing to pay for
Yeah.
Nisbet, and I think that's probably what you go low, they go high, and you try and meet in the middle. So, but even at 1.5 million, I think it's a no-brainer for us to go in for Nisbet. I think that that'd be a great bit of business, and if you can get Nisbet for under the 2 million mark, I think that would be a smashing bit of business for Rangers. I really do.
Yeah. I think it was quite funny. And Gallant Pioneer probably says how we all feel. If Nesbitt's worth £2 million to an English club, it's probably £5 million if you're Rangers. I mean, I'll come to you on that, Keir. Obviously, in recent years, we have picked up some players from Scottish clubs, but it does feel like if we go after somebody who is maybe deemed to be of a good enough standard, obviously we've been linked with like Hickey and Doig in the past.
Yeah.
Maybe they've went for lesser fees to an Italian club than what Rangers would have been forced to pay for them. Is that just something you have to accept because it's a Scottish market?
As and also, Hibs know what to sell me us, but we're probably not wanting to sell me anybody in the league. I know they've sold to Celtic in the past, but for some reason with Rangers, they don't really like dealing with us, do they? And it's one that if Rangers wanted them, I think they might have been me an offer by now, or they might have inquired. But it looks like they don't. I'm not sure why, because I think myself he's worth the gamble, but I do think he will end up in England. I mean, I think they're not back £3 million for Birmingham City. I think it was 2 years ago. And then Birmingham City bought the boy for Aberdeen at the time, Cosgrove, and who's kind of just flattered to deceive. I think he's out on loan in League One. So I think Nisbet would do a job down there. Millwall would be a good club for him. Millwall are a decent football side, and if he went there and done well, you don't really could lead up. But I don't think I'll get him for $1 million, but I kind of agree with Mark. I think if you touch your 2 million plus whatever else, I think they might get a chance, because I think Hibs are. I don't think he's happy, but he's not the only Hibs player that's not happy at the moment. So I think if we were interested, but we would have maybe spoke to Hibs already.
Yeah. I suppose the problem you've got, and it's something similar to Hagi. Obviously, Kevin Nisbet's just returned from a fairly lengthy spell out. I know he's come back and hit the ground running. He's basically been averaging a goal every game pretty much since he's come back. But is that still a risk, Mark, that a team's willing to pay a couple of £1 million for a guy who's obviously just been out long term? I know you can't guarantee anything in football because clearly anybody can break down at any time. However, is it more of a risk when somebody's missed a huge spell of football and has only recently just come back from that kind of injury?
Yeah, but I mean, like you've said, he's hit the ground running, so he's back. He's looking fit. He's scoring goals and he's playing games. So for me, that tells you. I mean, he might not be 100% over his injury as such. I mean, he might still be trying to get up to fitness and sharpness and stuff like that. But look, he's proven if he's putting the ball in the net and he's playing 90 minutes, which he's doing most weeks, then for me it proves that he's over it or just about over it, 95% over his injury. So for me, that looks like it's a good sign. So yeah, I understand the risk as well, but it's like I said, anything's a risk in this game. So, but yeah, I think if you can get him under 2 million, I think it's a no-brainer, especially with his injury, because even his wages, I don't think will be that. I mean, you'd be lucky if he's probably in 2.5 or 3 grand at Hibs. So even his wages wouldn't be a big issue either. So I think it's worth a punt, 100%.
Yeah. So I suppose the thing we have to say Whereas, but it's just been paper talk with an English club. We're obviously just discussing it from a Rangers perspective. Obviously, at the moment, we've still got Antonio Cholak, Kamar Roof, Alfredo Morelos, and Fashion Sakala. But we're just touching on it from a kind of point of view that whenever you try and sign a Scottish player, there almost seems to be like a Rangers tax involved in it, if you know what I mean, where, the fee has to be higher than what other clubs are willing to pay because maybe they don't want to sell to a Rangers or a Celtic at times, and maybe you're forced to overpay for somebody. So unless he's exceptional, is that the right amount of money you should be paying for a player? Wolf is asking, I think the lad Lopez, I take it he's talking about the boy Duke, the Portuguese lad that's done pretty well this season for Aberdeen. Obviously, we'll no touch on the Darvel defeat because we'll probably be here for about 2 hours talking about that in the comments, but I actually quite like Duke. I mean, from what I've seen of him, I actually think he looks like a pretty good player. I think there was talk at the time that Aberdeen had paid a reasonably decent fee for him in the 6-figure range. So it'd be interesting. I don't know if he's the type of player that Rangers would go after. What's your opinion on that one, Kerr?
He looks good, but he flatters to deceive. He hides too much for me, especially when the going gets tough. He hides, and I think you've seen it that night against Darvel. He was interested at the end. He just turned off. And I don't want players like that coming to Rangers, hiding when the going gets tough. But he is a decent footballer. He can beat a man, he can score, and he's done well with Aberdeen at times. But could he step up a level? I don't know. But it's another one if he approached Aberdeen, they'd be asking for silly money. I don't think he would be worth the gamble, but that's just my opinion, Will.
Yeah. No, look, and that's it. Just touching on some of the comments that are there anyway, but I think it's interesting that I think the Scottish market is becoming... It's so difficult to know the standard of some of the players in the league because we're obviously looking for guys to come in. In the main, I think, to be squad players. Maybe the odd one will come in and be a first-team player, a starting 11 player. But obviously, when you look at somebody like Duke, he's not Scottish, so he would have to be one of the best non-Scottish players to get into the European squad. So I think it's more important that if we are being linked with players in Scotland in general, it's going to be the best Scottish players because their guys can at least come in and be part of the European squad, and it helps us in terms of the homegrown stuff as well as the Scottish players. So that's just something that we'll obviously maybe touch on in the next kind of week or two as well on some of the pods. I think for me, when I look at somebody like Duke, I don't know if he comes in and improves us. I think when you do well at an Aberdeen or a Hibs, that's fair enough. It might mean off the back of that, he might get a move to England or he might get a move, back to a bigger club, back in his home country of Portugal and stuff like that. So I think that's fair enough. But I think for me, when I look at somebody like Duke, I don't think he's quite at the level that we would be looking for. When it comes to Nesbitt, I think I just kind of put him in the same category as Hagi. I think you want to see him playing for a wee while before you make that kind of bid, if you are interested, because if he breaks down again, having had that injury before, he's only got 18 months left in his contract. It's a big risk. Just like if anybody was to sign Yanis Hagi, it's a big risk knowing that he's coming back from that long-term injury. But it's interesting, and we'll continue to keep an eye on that. One of the last things we'll touch on just before we kind of finish up, there is rumours, obviously, that the Nicholas Raskin deal is going to be completed today. I'll come to Mark on care on this. If we do get the deal over the line, are you now happy with the business that we've done this January window, or do you still feel as though we need another one or another two, Mark?
I'll be over the moon. I think, as we discussed earlier, I think that the Raskin and Cantwell are two very, very exciting players. Great signings. I think both of them will be absolute superstars for us. Fingers crossed, but I think they will be. I think that's the type of players that we should be looking at. We should be looking at young players that have done, both of them, over 100 appearances for the first team. So exactly what we're after. Plenty of experience, straight into our first team. No any kind of hint of a project player or anything like that. I think probably when you talk about Whittaker, I think Whittaker might be a sort of a project player in the kind of terms. But for me, I still think we need a striker. I think we need a striker for the fact that we're light on our feet. As I said, Alfie's hot and cold at the minute. He's not really firing. Jolak's struggling with injury, wee niggles here and there. Roof, you can forget Roof. That's for, as far as I'm concerned. And I think probably Sakal can play through the middle, but I think he's better off either the left or the right. So for me, I would still try and get a striker in. And I think probably if we get Whittaker to kind of cover the right side and try and bleed him in looking for next season, I think that would be good. So don't get me wrong, I'd be over the moon if Raskin and Cantwell were the only two that come in. I would be over the moon. I think that would be a really good transfer window for us. But obviously, we always want to be greedy, and we always want another couple more, as I said. But I think the more you bring in, i.e., as I said, Whittaker, I think Whittaker will add competition for that right side of the attacking midfield. So, and I think we're desperate for a striker. I think we're really, really struggling for any sort of options as it stands at the minute. If Alfie's no fit, we're proper in the do. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously Cholak's coming back and then breaking down, coming back, breaking down. So we're really, really struggling. And as I said, we'll end up trying to play young boys or play boys out of position, i.e. Tillman, through the middle because we're struggling. So I think that for me, that's a priority. I know that probably Beale's not really thinking like that, but as I said, he'll maybe know better than me the treatment bench, what that's like. So I don't know.
Yeah. I'll come to you, Kerr. CGM's asking the point, so we'll just kind of pick up on it quickly. Talking about Cantwell, where will he actually play? I don't know if you've seen obviously his interview yesterday, but the way he seemed to speak is he was going to be playing more centrally, whether that's as a midfield central player or as a number 10 in behind the striker. Where do you see him playing in the Rangers jersey?
Probably where he says. I think he is more suited to the middle of the park, but I don't think he just sits there. I think he does. He'll probably get a free roll as well. I think with guys like Campbell and Kent and Tillman, you can't box them into a position. You can't say that's your area of the park and don't move. It's but these type of players, they roam, they get the ball on the left, get the ball on the right, get the ball through the middle because they're intelligent footballers, so we'll all switch and interchange. And I think it's something exciting to look forward to, I have to say. And I think once he can do what he's been done in his career with Norwich, I think a lot of people will be pleasantly surprised how good a footballer he is. So I'm excited for Campbell coming through the door. Raskin as well. I'm not 100%. I've not really watched a lot of Raskin, so I don't know a lot about him. So I'll just say I'm excited. Once I get to see him, I can give you a better opinion. I wouldn't say so, no, because I think they're slightly different the way they play. Ryan's more explosive. He'll attack players. Todd Campbell's more that intelligent player. Ball at his feet, playing the pass, and it might look similar, but they are slightly different. But I think good players can play each other. Doesn't matter who it is. And I think if you get Kent, Campbell, and Tillman or Lawrence or whatever, you'll be able to fit all them into a system because, as we touched on last night, I'm not a big fan of two holders. So I feel like if you played one or you just had somebody sitting when we lose, but get behind the ball when we've lost possession, and that does me, especially in the SPL. We've got good enough players, we should be beating more teams here anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one for CGM. I mean, if Raskin was to be, say, the slightly deeper of the three, but then you've got Tillman and, and Cantwell, that's a very attack-minded midfield three. Certainly very different from what we've had for the last year and a bit, which I think it's fair to say that we haven't always had the most attack-minded midfield three, but having those three in that team would certainly be a very aggressive, attack-minded Rangers team.
Sorry, well, I just like to say Tillman's stats, I know you're not a big fan of stats, but he wins the ball back quite a lot.
Yeah.
Tillman. So he does have that to his game. And Campbell will just see what he can bring. But offensively, he'll be good. Defensively, he'll have to maybe improve because it's Scotland. It's a different type of game for where he came from. So, but why should we be worried about opposition teams? Make them worry about us and just go and get them. That's what we should be doing in the league.
100%. Right, just to finish up, Brian, I think that's a fair point, mate, and that's the same for every signing that you make. Time will tell. Give the players time to settle in the platform as well. Absolutely, mate, 110%. And look, of course we want new signings because I think there's a fair criticism of the club that maybe in the summer some of the players we brought in haven't maybe hit the ground running. Some of the other ones have. I mean, overall, Cholak's done pretty well. I think Ben Davies has done a pretty good job as well since he's been fit. Obviously, the Matondo deal doesn't look like great value at the moment. Ridvan, we've just not seen enough of him, unfortunately, due to injury and Borna having been playing so well that maybe Ridvan was on the bench a little bit more than maybe the fans would have liked, because when you pay that amount of money for a player, there's maybe an expectation that he was going to start. So that's something that we'll touch on as well in the coming days with the morning pods. But here's hoping that, the rumours that Nicholas Raskin's deal will be announced today will happen. I think he would be a very exciting signing for us, and certainly somebody that adds something different, to that midfield that we've currently got. His age is a big thing for me, 21, so there's a huge upside to that. If he comes here and does well, he does well in Europe, then clearly we can sell him for a huge profit, and that is just part of the game, whether people like it or not. Yeah, again, thanks for joining us today. It's very much appreciated. Hopefully we might see you as we have Breaking Rangers transfer podcast in a few hours' time. The likelihood is that it might be these three idiots that's sitting here that might be back on again in a few hours' time. So if you really enjoyed our company and you don't think we talk too much rubbish, then join us again very soon, guys. Thank you very much, and take care of yourselves.